2, 1. Boom. And we are live. I am joined by friend first, colleague, host of Off the Glass podcast, Zach Ramey. We have a draft show in Atlanta with Rashad Phillips, Sports Talk 2319 on SUVtv.
Yes.
Obviously, November 18th. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Max. Just putting the last finishing touches on these prospects. A lot of young men about to make their dreams come true. A lot of great talent in this year's draft. And just excited to be a part of an actual draft show. Like, I can't believe that I was, first of all, thank Rashad for even, thinking of me like that. But to be a part of a draft show, man, like it's been incredible, man. So I'm excited, man. I'm really excited, looking forward to it.
Yeah, he put together something special. And I've told this to you off air, obviously, and on air. There's nobody I'd rather do it with. So I know your love and knowledge for the game is just, it makes me better. It makes everyone around you better because you bring that type of energy. So it's beyond a pleasure and an honor to do it with you. I really mean
Thank
that.
you, Max. I echo the same sentiments. Like I said, we got us a deep draft, man. So we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. So I've done an episode where I kind of just talk about the top prospects. Everyone's doing their top 30, the first round. And there are some hidden gems late in the first round as well. But what we're going into right now on this podcast is kind of diving in depth with guys who aren't being discussed, who isn't really looked at. And it's just kind of getting overlooked. So let's kind of dive in depth. We've obviously did our homework. There's guys that just pop off the screen that aren't getting talked about. So you and I are both very high on, well, I'll just start off right here on some of our similarities. RJ Hampton. And I just watched actually one of your posts on your Instagram. So can you tell me why you're so high on RJ Hampton and maybe why others aren't as high on him? What are they missing?
I think I was one of the people who actually watched him play in Australia in the NBL, watched his games. First of all, fantastic league. I think a lot of people don't give it the credit that it deserves. I think we're kind of being lazy a little bit because once we get started out the Euro League, what's the Australian League? But to be honest with you, the Australian League is one of the best leagues outside of the United States. So let's first get that. He's playing against some great competition, grown men, guys that played in the NBA or could have played in the NBA, and he's 19. So I saw him hold his own. So now then we see people talk about the shooting percentages and different things. But when you watch him play, his athleticism jumps off the screen. And we've seen that in the workouts, some of the Instagram videos that's been posted. But you can see it on display in that league. And that elite speed, that's why I pegged him as one of my 3 guys that's not being talked about at the top that I feel like can be a superstar. His ability to take the ball from end to end was very John Wall-esque, very Russell Westbrook, the kind of players we've seen in the last few years, the ability to just take it off the rim and really go. And his jump shot, from what I've heard and what I've seen, has gotten better in workouts. And it's not like he shot the ball completely bad. It wasn't like he had a bunch of attempts. He was able to knock some threes down. I saw the form looked pretty solid to me. So for me, it's about him getting more reps. And then to be honest with you, Max, he was such a good athlete and is such a good athlete. He had no problem getting to the basket. So for him, somebody like him, he's constantly putting pressure on the defense. He's constantly playing downhill. So he's not trying to settle for jump shots. Now, that's something he'll add as he goes, and it's always a work in progress. But to me, the athleticism, the talent, and his potentially be a really good defender as well at his size and wingspan. So that means he could probably guard 1, 2s, and maybe even some 3s. And we know the NBA likes the small ball lineups. But he's definitely going to bring some excitement starting opening night. And who knows? This draft, I think, in a lot of cases, we're going to be talking about a lot of guys. But he was one of the 3 guys I pegged that outside of the Anthony Edwards, the LaMelo Balls, the James Wisemans, who I really believe has superstar potential.
I couldn't have worded better myself. 100% agree with you. And he has it. Like sometimes you can people that like, I really don't think I think he could average more. He could have been more efficient. It doesn't piece of paper. That's not something you can look up. That's not something you could do your homework on. You have to watch it. And it's like, okay, that guy has it. And it's capitalized in this case. He is dynamic. And another really, the NBA spacing, I think, is really going to benefit him. And just having an open floor, like you said, the speed of the game now. the way the NBA plays today is going to work in his favor. And I'm crossing my fingers in a selfish way with this aspect. I cover the Orlando Magic. I just hope somehow he falls to Orlando so I can see this firsthand as often as I can. And I think Rashad's touched on this a lot, an economic boost, like to a team like a Detroit or a team like Orlando who needs that flair. They just need to get people excited. He brings that. He certainly brings that.
They definitely need that in Detroit. I actually got to cover the Big Three last summer, and that's a beautiful arena that they built in downtown Detroit. I actually went to it, and Detroit would love to have them. And, you know, a good source of mine told me that what he's been doing in these workouts have been super impressive. So we might see some surprises as he was one of those guys that moves up the board, especially with some of these teams having these picks at the top. You know, you talk to trading up, and he could be a guy that might go a lot higher than people might anticipate. But those of us who really watch the tape and really watch the film, it'll all make sense on draft night.
Right, Zach. We'll dive in all this stuff again on the 18th, so make sure you guys tune in.
Yep.
Another guy I want to kind of start with our common denominators here is Tyrell Terry. And now I've used the analogy Bluetooth and Wi-Fi with LeBron and MJ. Bluetooth can kind of connect with anyone. Wi-Fi, you may not be in range to connect with him, but if you do, it's a stronger signal. MJ had that.
Yes.
I think Tyrell Terry has that Bluetooth DNA where I could see him in a plethora of systems, alongside so many different players. He can move off the ball. He's good with the ball. NBA spacing, NBA range. I'm extremely high on Tyrell Terry, as are you. What popped for you to be like, okay, I like Tyrell Terry? What was it?
Love his film, and just letting people know it's kind of hard not to talk point guard combo guard prospects, because to me, the point guard position is the deepest position in the draft. So let's just get that out of the way. So a lot of the guys we're going to mention, it's not that we don't like the bigs or some of the other wings. It's that it's a very heavy point guard draft. And he's like number 3 or arguably 2 for me. 4-level score, so he'll lose you way out. And again, I equate this to Steph Curry effect. And all the great players have it. You know, when we look back at the really great players, the transcendent great players, it's almost like, what is your lineage? How did you change the game? What came behind you? And now we're seeing it with, first it was Trae Young, and now we're seeing it with this young man who's a little bit bigger than Trae Young, but has the same size as Steph Curry, about 6'3", can go to the basket. And at the next level, when you see quote unquote smaller guys, even though 6'3" isn't really small, the average height, I believe, in the league is like 6'6", 6'7", is their ability to finish around the basket. He can finish around the basket with both hands. He can knock down the mid-range jump shot. He has that swagger, and when he's pulling up in transition for 3. And more importantly, as somebody like me that played the position and loved the pass, his passing is very underrated. I think it might be one of the best aspects of his game outside of shooting. I mean, some of the passes he was tossing, and as Rashad used to say it, I thought I was the only person that kind of described it like this, but like almost in football, he's throwing guys open. He has that ability where he's throwing the ball to spots where guys are. And then one that super nerdy of me, but I appreciate it. It was a play I remember where his post player was posting up on the block, and there was no backside help. So he's being fronted, and he put this lob right on the money, and he caught it right in stride and laid it up. And those are the kind of things that we don't always see in the game anymore, because post play is not how it used to be. So I think that's one of the missing things, is just being able to feed the post nowadays. So again, he has all of it. And again, when you watch him play, he has that it factor. So for me, he was number 2 on my list of guys. No, he was number 3 of the 3 guys who I feel like, outside of those main guys, who can be us, we could look back and say, you know what, he's a superstar. And I even went on the record and said that if I'm the Knicks at 7, I'm taking him, or another guy I know we're going to talk about is Kyra Lewis. Those 2 guys, outside of LaMelo Ball, those are my top point guard prospects. I'm high on those 2 guys. And I just feel like those might be a situation also like Steph Curry, where Minnesota has got to be kicking themselves, because look what that ended up being. So I see the same thing in Tyrell Terry as well.
Now, although it doesn't happen that you get a Steph Curry every draft you do get a guy where it's like, man, how did Clay land all the way down there? Like, how did that guy get passed up? So to your point,
Yeah.
these are those guys that will get passed up. And it's like Steph Curry, the way he changed the game is like the mobile quarterback.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's
Great,
like
great
now
analogy.
you
Yes.
have to have it. You have to have it paved the way for a Kyler Murray, that short quarterback.
Yep.
He's undersized, but the way he scrambles, the way he throws people open, that's Steph, that's Trey, now that's Tyrell Terry from Sanford. You just mentioned him, so let's dive right into it. Kyra Lewis Jr., from Alabama. I really liked his film as well.
Loved
the sophomore, insanely quick, that quick twitch, NBA game again. As far as the speed, the up and down, dynamic, electric. I was shocked that he wasn't more highly prospected. So to you, where do you see his impact in the game today? Like, why aren't teams jumping all over him? You and I see it. Rashad sees it. Why aren't more teams seeing that with him?
To be honest with you, is one of those questions, Max. I don't know if I really have an answer, to just be honest with you.
Right.
Again, I think Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, because of the size, Edwards with the physical gifts, I think they kind of overshine. Even Killian Hayes, he's a little bit bigger
right.
prospect. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit more beholden to bigger guards because, again, the guys is what it is. And it's not that I don't believe smaller guards can have success, but I always say if you give me a bigger guard that can do the same thing as a smaller guard, more than likely I might be inclined. So,
right.
But he's not small like that. But I don't know, to be honest with you, because when you watch his tape, he doesn't have that elite speed like I mentioned with a RJ Hampton, but his ability to go from 0 to 60, like the way he was lulling guys to sleep in that breakdown video I did was just amazing stuff. He's sneaky, athletic. And then he has all the finishes in his bag. The same thing as we mentioned with Terry, to be able to sidestep guys, great footwork and finish.
Right.
And what I loved about him is his ability to play with pace. I just felt like he was really under control, wise beyond his years. You weren't going to speed him up, really executed the pick and roll well. I even put a play in there because I think as a former point guard, I don't think people pay attention to these small details where he was kind of inviting the double team on a pick and roll. And he didn't go in there full speed. He didn't rush it. He kind of strung it out, created enough space, and then threw what we used to call the kickback pass for the guard filling that spot on the weak side for a wide open three. And those kind of things kind of get overlooked, but those are the consistent winning plays that you want your point guard to make. And then he can shoot the ball. I mean, he can flat out shoot the ball. So if you're going underneath him, his mechanics look great. He's making you pay. I just felt like he was playing hard, but it was no wasted motion. And I felt like he played with a lot of poise and was very under control.
That's a really great point by you, because I think a lot of players think speed of a Russell Westbrook, and sometimes he's out of control. But even though he played fast, it was controlled speed. It was like controlled chaos. He knew what he's doing at that speed. Like you said, he didn't make irrational decisions based off the speed. He knew exactly what he was doing.
And it shows you how his ability to interpret the game, because college is fast, the NBA is going to get faster, but he was able to see things and then make the adjustment real quick. Or if he caught you napping, so it was one play I remember, he's bringing it down with good pace. And he's like, oh, okay, I kind of got him on his heels. Boom, he's gone. Next play. And those kind of things when I see in the film that I didn't necessarily see in some of the other guys' film. And it's like, wow, this guy is just really, really poised. And I think he's going to be a really good pro. And again, it was apples to oranges to me. That's how much I really like Terry and Lewis. It was really just apples to oranges between both players. You can't go wrong, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. Another guy that you and I both share that we looked into is Jaden McDaniels. He is so interesting to me from Washington. So interesting because he possesses everything you want in today's wing. Everything you want: the length, the athleticism, the quick twitch, defensively, offensively. And I'm, why is he all the way down here on so many boards? Because he has so much room for growth. Like, his ceiling could be so high. I thought that would be more attractive to more teams. What do you see in his game?
Let's just say it, Max. I'll ask you. He might be talent-wise, just talent. I think he's the most talented player in the draft if we go strictly off talent. What do you think?
No, I don't think you're crazy. That's the thing. Yeah, I don't think. I think you can make that. You can make that argument. Yeah.
So I think talking to a couple people, even Rashad, is always they talk about the motor, the inconsistency. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a glass half full guy. This guy is 19. He was a McDonald's All-American. He has all the tools, the long arms. He's 6'9" and can handle and shoot. And then I heard things about shot selection, and I'm thinking like, yeah, he's 19. I saw Washington play. They had the other big guy that's a prospect. I forget his name, but it wasn't a great team of cohesiveness like that, you know. So me personally, when I see the gifts, and then I saw the gifts on defense, the chase down blocks, the staying vertical, so I'm like, man, if he can get to the right team, he could possibly be a 3-and-D guy that can really score. And then to me, it was just obvious. Brooklyn, we're waiting. You got pick 18. You're win mode now. Kevin Durant is there. The easy comparison is Kevin Durant. To me, it just makes perfect sense. But the talent, as soon as I watched it, and let's just get this out the way too. Prior to the NCAA, you know, the before the stoppage, you know, if you listen to my podcast, Max has said it, I worked another job, so I kind of had to focus on NBA. So I didn't watch a lot of these guys play.
Right.
So for me, I knew he was a make. I knew him, but I didn't really watch him play outside of the Oregon game, where I watched the other prospect I like, Peyton Pritchard, and I was intrigued with him then. But this was the first time I really got to really delve into his tape. And again, it was that it factor. It just jumps off screen.
And you can't teach certain things. I have a binder right here full of information, draft prep, everything. I can learn, I can study where people are from.
Yeah.
I can become 6'8" with an insane wingspan and be super athletic. I can't do that.
Right.
He has that. He just has things that you can't just get. He was blessed with them. When I saw him defensively, I thought of Jonathan Isaac, but offensively, he's more skilled. He's more skilled, and he has more room for growth on the offensive end. So I'm like, this is scary, because Jonathan Isaac out of Florida State was a high prospect. People are like, hey, we see a great, versatile two-way player. And I was surprised that Jaden McDaniels wasn't getting that type of love like Jonathan Isaac did, because I even see more room for potential. To your point, arguably the most talented player in the draft.
And then the other thing, kind of a side note, we're going to have to start putting some respect on that Pacific Northwest. I mean, he's from Tacoma, Washington, right outside the city close to Seattle. And we see what comes out of there, from Brandon Roy to Jamal Crawford to Nate Robinson. You know, the guys that I think Zach LaVine is from that area as well. So the guys that we got to start putting some respect behind the Pacific Northwest name, because Jaden McDaniels, to me, talent-wise, I thought he was the best player in this year's draft. Seriously.
I love it, Zach. I really do. Okay, so I want you to get into Peyton Pritchard. I was going to say Tyrese Halliburton. I think he has that Bluetooth quality.
Of course.
I don't slept on anymore. I think he's shot up the board now. He's a lottery pick. So I'm not going to dive too much in depth with Tyrese Halliburton. So let's dive into Peyton Pritchard from Oregon. I've seen something you've received. This is how I know you're making it, Zach. We're getting big, because you're getting a lot of hate now. So you're on Twitter. You talk about Peyton Pritchard. You made just a comparison that just made people go crazy. And I'm like, I don't think you're crazy. I see what you're talking about. Why do you like Peyton Pritchard? And what was the comparison that you made? And why did you make that comparison? Because now you can put it into words. You're not limited to characters now. So talk to me.
Right. So I saw him play as a junior last year. So I was high on him last year. I thought he would actually come out last year. But for me, I don't really like doing the player comparisons, because number one, I ain't gonna lie, it's hard to do, just being honest.
And it's not always fair sometimes, because
it's not always fair. And then I kind of like to have it happen organically. I have to kind of I'm watching and, oh, that guy reminds me of that. Not necessarily trying to
force it.
Yeah, seek out comparison. I'm watching it and I'm like, this is Jason Kidd in college. And Jason Kidd, first of all, was my favorite college player ever. He's the only player I've ever written their name on my shoes. Like, I had Kidd name written on my shoes. First of all, I thought the stature was similar, down to the buzz haircut, same kind of stocky stature. And then it was one play in particular. He caught the outlet coming across the big man. And it reminded me of how Kidd would catch these outlets. Because we remember Dallas Mavericks, late Dallas Mavericks, Jason Kidd. Not early Dallas Mavericks Kidd, when he was one of the fastest guys I've ever seen at 6'5" with the ball. And he looked the same way. Pritchard, same kind of upright push, quick. He got down the court faster than you would think. And then it was plays where he was doing that, and then he had the same kind of vision. He's throwing the ball ahead like Kidd. He's a much better mid-range shooter and three-point shooter than Kidd was at that age. Kidd was your traditional point guard, as Clark Kellogg would say, that can stack the stat sheet stuffer. He'll stuff it from steals across the board.
Develop that shot.
Into that shot. And the rosters was kind of similar. Cal had Lamont Murray. He goes on to play in the league. But it was really, the engine was Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd did a lot of heavy lifting. You take him off that team. Yeah, Lamont Murray probably still makes it to the NBA because he could flat out score. But there's no way in the world they had the overall team success they had, because his freshman year, they knocked off Duke. Just came off winning back-to-back national championships, and they had their whole team back except for Leitner. And he was unbelievable in that game. And I just saw the same type of leadership from Pritchard that we saw from Kidd at Cal. And people thought I meant like all NBA kid and one of the top.
You didn't think people on Twitter take everything into context and give you a rational decision or opinion?
No, I mean, I'm learning every day. Like, no matter how you try to detail it.
Yeah.
And I put the film up, and I thought, because even when I put the film up, some of the people were like, "Oh, I apologize. I see it now. Like, I see it." But then you had some people like, "Nah, you," and then it got like weird, real disrespectful, and it was just like. And then I think, again, just the elephant in the room is like, I'm comparing a white player to a black player. Like, how is that possible? That's just what I saw. Like, let's take the race off the table. That's just what I saw. So, and the cool thing was I've been kind of consistent on it, and now he's getting love. He's getting love from the bigger outlets. He even liked one of my tweets. So, kind of confirmation that I was kind of on it. But it was one of those things where I really wasn't trying to go viral. I wasn't trying to make controversial comparisons. It's just like, I'm watching the film. I like this player. This is what I see. And last thing, if he wasn't a senior, I think he'd be a lottery pick. Because a lot of times what makes these guys lottery picks is the underclassmen, the potential. They can still get better because they're so young. I think he'll be a lottery pick if he wasn't a senior. I really do.
It's like if you get past, you don't get clicks. It's like if you're the one and done or a sophomore, Kyra Lewis Jr. a sophomore, so he's getting some attention. As soon as you hit that junior mark, like a Jalen Harris, Mason Jones, it's like, okay, this is his game. But it's like not always true. So to your point, I think that's very true with Peyton Pritchard. So, okay, I'm going to give you three names. And I know we both like all three of these guys. Pick one that stand out to you, and not that one's better than the other, but just one that stands out to you that you would want to dive into. So I'm going to give you Mason Jones. So we have the junior from Arkansas. We have Jalen Harris, junior from Nevada. And then the third one I wanted to give you, because we're high on a couple different ones here, Grant Riller, senior from Charleston. Rashad put me on Grant Riller because Rashad's been really high on him for a while. He was very high on Mason Jones as well. So shout out to Rashad Phillips, by the way. He just finds everybody. But out of those three guys, I think all three of them are incredibly talented. I think all three of them will be extremely successful. Which one would you want to dive into if I gave you those three names? Like I said, not that you like one better than the other, just in the conversation that we're having.
It's tough because, to be honest with you, I think all three of them kind of deserve to be talked about. But I would say Jalen Smith out of Nevada. When I didn't know who he was, just being honest. And then when I saw the film, I was like, whoa.
He's nasty.
He's nasty. Complete package, can score. I'm not surprised he tested what he did with the verticals, obvious on the highlight tapes. And what you're seeing, too, is a trend of guys, because he started at Louisiana Tech, and you see these guys, like, they'll get their feet wet, and then they're kind of like, I'm going to go to another program where I can kind of really shine and get ready for this next level. We saw with the same guy that was in his conference that I'm high on, Malachi Flynn. He started at Washington State, and for him, he came down to San Diego State and kind of did the same thing. But I'm really intrigued by him as a prospect, along with Mason Jones, because I think, again, what we've done in a lot of ways, and I get it, we put a lot of weight on potential with prospects, with early picks, and that's fine. I'm not begrudging that. But at the same time, we're looking for basketball players. So if guys can flat out just get it done now, I would pull the trigger on a Jalen Smith. I really would. On a Mason Jones who can flat out score. I just, and we're in a unique situation where there's no summer league, there's no long training camps and all this. So you're gonna need some guys that can come in and play right away. And he fits the bill. Like, again, super impressed with his tape. And I think he's another guy. I just picked 3 because 3 is a good number, but he's another guy that we might look back at this drive and be like, wow, like he went here when he could have easily obviously went here, and he's 3 years in, he's already fighting to make an all-star team or something, or who knows, So no, I'm really high on all 3, but love Jalen Smith. Love him.
Yeah, Jalen, he's a beast. Brought up Malachi Flynn, Jr. from San Diego, chip on the shoulder. I've seen Rashad called him, like, looking at his tape, he flashes of Mike Bibby when he was in college.
Yeah.
So when you watch his tape, you watch him play. I know you're high on him. You just talked about what is it that pops for you? Because, like I said, obviously you watch the tape. He's very smart. I think one thing, like how we talk about it this entire time, having a chip on your shoulder, in my opinion, is so underrated. You have a chip on your shoulder. You work extremely hard. You're trying to prove yourself.
Yep.
That's why you've gotten to where you're at. I have a chip on my shoulder. Rashad has a chip on his shoulder. Tom Brady still remembers he got drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important thing to have. So what is it that you like about his game, Malachi Flynn?
Well, I saw San Diego State play, and immediately, again, with this draft being so deep with point guards, it was kind of like cheating for me. I mean, I played the position. I did. So
right.
I know what it takes to play that position at the NBA level. So for me, this was a draft I feel like I could kind of really shine. And then when I saw him play, it's the poise. It's the playing with pace. You're not speeding him up. He's doing what he wants to do. He's moving the defense around the court, whether it's with his dribble or it's with his eyes or how he set up his his dribble. Because one play in particular, they blitz him on a pick and roll, but he does a right to left crossover to kind of freeze them, and then opened up the passing lane to hit the big guy slipping to the basket. And then the fact that I knew that he was Defensive Player of the Year, so I'm like, oh, he's a two-way player. I love two-way players. I feel like basketball is a game of playing two ends, defense and offense. Whenever I see those kind of guys, I love it. And then I like the fact that he was shooting a mid-range jump shot. And I still think it's a valuable shot, especially for a point guard. If you're coming off the pick and roll and you're able to get to the basket and finish and knock down threes, and then like now your level 2 is you carve up defenses. And I remember when pick and roll basketball really became popular and came into vogue, I was already in my pro career. So I was like, as somebody that was a 3-level scorer and athletic, when I see these guys that play that are better than me at this level, I mean, I just get excited because that I'm saying that level 2 in this era of analytics, I don't think people really understands how much it can unlock an offense if your point guard, who's your main creator these days, your main ball handler, can knock that shot down. Because then at that point, there's no defensive coverage you can really run at their team. And if you surround them with other players, it's like how you can forget about it. So that's what I saw from him.
Let me back up your point, because I think a lot of prisoner of the moment or recency bias kicks in when we have basketball discussions. So for people who may be disagreeing with you, I would bring up Goran Dragic. We think of his 3, but if you watched a lot of the postseason off that pick and roll with Bam, they know that he flashed to the rim. He hit that mid-range shot quite a bit.
Yes.
And so that has incredible value, to your point. And I think throughout the finals, you see sometimes stats aren't what they seem. And that mid-range from Kawhi Leonard, that mid-range from AD, Jimmy Butler, it goes a long way. It goes a really long
way. And then it's when you're taking them and how. So if you're a point guard, let's just walk through the play. So if I'm coming off to my left,
right,
more than likely, if you look at Malachi Flynn, for example's highlights, his defender's trailing him. The big guy's kind of in no man's land or the rotation guy. So if he gets to a spot and elevates, if you want to be honest, it's an open shot. It's not a hard contested 2. So I would live with him taking that and knocking that down. Like, that's a really good shot. And that's what you saw from Jimmy, AD, and then, like you mentioned, Goran Dragic. They're getting to spots and raising. So they're not shooting over 3 or 4 people or forcing shots. It's an open shot. And we want to take the most open shot or the best available shot. And if that's the mid-range two at that elbow area, you got to rise up and knock it down as a point guard.
And to your point, it unlocks the other levels to your scoring because now they know you're a threat there. So now they may play up on you, which the first level's there. They may sag off. The third level's there. So to your point, it unlocks so many different things. Zach, before I just run by my list, their flowers, is there anyone else that you wanted to talk about? Anyone that sticks out to you?
Man, let me look at my list real quick.
Because we touched on a lot of guys, but I just wanted to make sure.
I'm going to touch on one of the wings that I like. I like Saddiq Bey out of Villanova.
Oh, that. Yeah, I saw that. I like Saddiq Bey. He has a burn.
Yeah. Cheap comparison. I don't know. I just saw this is what I saw when I watched him. I think he's more skilled at this point in his career than this player was, but he just reminded me of Josh Howard with a little bit more size. That was really pivotal in those Mavericks teams. Really good role player. I think his ceiling is a little bit higher, but as far as energy, he just attacked the basket, whether it was offensive rebounds, getting to the basket, athleticism, can really stroke the three. So I really liked him. That's a guy I haven't heard really talked about. And then Precious Achiuwa from Memphis. Just a pogo stick and runs the floor, plays hard. What I was impressed by him, because I didn't see Memphis play this shit, is to be honest with you, the ability to handle the ball. Right. I thought he was DeAndre Jordan with an actual offensive game as far as that bounce and rebounding ability, defensive ability, and he can shoot the three already.
Yeah.
Move his feet. So I was impressed by him. So again, Max, may not be the superstar attraction name in this draft like we saw with Zion and Luka and some other guys. But I'm telling you that don't sleep on this draft. A lot of talented guys in this draft.
We talked about this on the phone. What makes good teams great teams are the guys that are going to be in this draft. And you need these type of guys in that draft. We talked about RJ Hampton, Grant Riller, Kyra Lewis Jr., Tyrese Halliburton, I'm high on Mason Jones, Tyrell Terry, I'm high on Elijah Hughes, the junior from Syracuse, Jalen Harris, Cassius Stanley. Cassius Stanley. That's the guy I forgot. He's growing on me. CJ Ellerby, Jaden McDaniels, Peyton Pritchard, Saddiq Bey.
More. Even Isaiah Joe, Mason Jones' teammate out of Arkansas, can flat out score the ball. So
nasty.
Nasty. It's a lot of guys in this draft, man. So Devon Dotson out of Kansas is another guy, so it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
So Elijah Hughes from Syracuse, I know somebody, I know a coach that knows him, and he watched him grow up and he coached him, very familiar with this game. And he said what I love most about him is his character. And that's another thing. We talked about talked about the chip on the shoulder. Yes. Being that high character and coachable, I think is very underrated and underappreciated, because being able to be coached, being responsible, because I'm a young adult, right? You hand me millions and millions of dollars. That's a different position I've never been in. So that's something that mature people adapt very well to. And he talked about character. So there's so many talented guys, Zach, so many.
And even to add to that real quick, as far as I think we even forget this, if you're used to being the best your whole career, and now maybe you get to the NBA where you might have to play behind a couple guys, you might not get the same minutes you might be looking for right away. Do you have that character, that perseverance to continue to work and wait for your opportunity? And then when it happens, you're ready. But I'm high on Elijah Hughes as well. Carried a very mediocre Syracuse team this year, man, and had to flat out score the ball. And I think he's another guy that we're going to be looking back on and say, he should have went probably a little bit higher.
Yeah, if you watched the film, a lot of the Syracuse's offense, they give it to him with 5 seconds left. So if you were to look at that sheet, you're like, oh, he's not always the most efficient. But if you understood the circumstance and the situation, it would pop like, okay, that's why. So Zach Ramey from Off the Glass Podcast. I am so honored to be doing this draft show with you November 18th.
Yes,
Rashad Phillips, you have Kate, you have so many amazing people. It's going to be a great time. SUVtv, Sports Talk 2319. Where can people find you? Your Twitter is incredible. Your Instagram is incredible. Your podcast is. So please, you got shirts, you got jackets. Floor is yours.
Yeah, we're trying to, we're doing it all over here, Max. The website is www.theofftheglasspodcast.com. So the links to my YouTube page, the links to my Patreon page. So if you want to support the podcast, subscribe. It's $5 a month. We're not knocking you over the head. If you want some merch, the link to that as well. I have my Instagram is Zach the Off the Glass Podcast. So all my breakdown videos is there underneath the NBA draft series. I also have the videos on my YouTube as well. If you're a YouTube person, follow me on Twitter, Zach at the Off the Glass, Zach at the Off the Glass. I engage. I love Twitter. It's really grown for me the last few months, my following. So I appreciate all those who continue to support me and support the content. And last but not least, make sure to stream us November 18th, next Wednesday, draft night. The website is SUVtv.com. So just like that famous Law and Order show, SUVtv.com. The link will be there. So have us on in your AirPod, your headphone. You can have ESPN on, but if you want to listen to some really good in-depth analysis, you got to stream us. You got to tune in. So I'm excited to be sharing that space with not only Max, but Kate and Daryl and also Rashad. So it's going to be a great show. I can't wait.
Fantastic. Zach, I'll be seeing you soon next week.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Yes,
It's always
sir.
a pleasure coming on. And please check my guy out. Thank you, Zach.